Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Against the Shadow. This one is titled The Blood of Númenór. The last time that we played, our intrepid adventurers had left Imladris to head into Arnor, and they stayed atop Amon Sul, Weathertop. And there during the night, Belzegar, the Black Númenórean, accompanied by some of the Nazgul, attacked them, and they held them off just barely, and were saved at the last minute by some Dunedain Rangers who had been advancing on their position anyway. And using fire and whatever else they could muster, they drove off the race. And that's where we left them, atop Weathertop, just after the Nazgul had left. And that's where we'll start. So these Dunedain had basically come crawling over the walls and had appeared on top of some of the ruined stonework atop this Amon Sul. They had driven off the ring race, and as the creatures are fleeing, you would see many of them twang arrows after them, trying to take them down as best they can. But eventually, one of them would kind of bring up his hand and make a fist, and they would all stop once and turn to face inwards. They would kind of begin climbing down from the various bits of rock and ruin that they're on top of, and come to stand. And this Dunedain man would step forward and he would take off his hood. You don't recognize him, actually, Farath, which is surprising. But he kind of inclines his head to all of you and he says, "I am Halbarad. It's a good thing we came by when we did."
As a point, Lloyd, I probably wouldn't recognize him because at this point I'm still unconscious, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Blood is pouring from Varroth's face. He lies on his back, and you can see the strike from the Nazgul caught him on the cheekbone, passes under his eye, then jaggedly changes direction down the side of his nose and over his lip. And he's out for the count.
I guess Halbrad would look to you, all of you who are standing there, who aren't Farath and who isn't unconscious, and he would say, "Your friend needs help. We have no healers with us. We can try."
Without even saying anything, I'm just going to kneel down and immediately start looking at Farah's facial area, how intact his bone structure is still. If anything, and just say, I am the main healer of the party, and I suppose we'll have to see with this one.
Well, see what you can do. And two of them rush forward next to you and they kneel over Farath. And they're kind of looking and they're bringing some light, they're holding torches up above so you can see. And you almost wish that they hadn't, because the wound is pretty ragged. It's pretty, you can see bone underneath from the blow. And even for a healer like yourself, it's pretty gross to look at. But they hold the torches up anyway so that you can work. Setting Farath, all right. The rest of them are busying themselves, walking around the place, and they're securing the area. Basically, they're checking for any other enemies. They're on top of various stone structures. They're looking out into the darkness. They're firing fire arrows out to light the area around Amon Sul, just to be sure that they see whatever is coming if something does. Halbarad steps forward again. Who leads you?
Beregond is, now that the adrenaline of the fight has gone, he's just gone completely white, and he's holding a torch near Farath, and he's shaking as he does so, and he still, but the light is shaking as he's providing light for Syrian to work, and he just Beregond indicates Faroth, the unconscious Faroth.
Oh, I see. He bears the symbols of our people. He's one of us.
He is Faroth,
Son of Fardred.
Yes.
Oh.
of
He
the
kind of
line
looks
of
over his shoulder at some of the rest of them, and they look to and from each other. And it's kind of just an awkward moment as they kind of look around to each other and then to you guys.
And I am his man. My name is Beregond of Gondor, and I am his sworn man. Cynric of the Rohirrim, and Syrian also of Gondor. And the dwarf is Nar, Ironfoot.
You appear to show disdain at the mention of Faroth's name.
No disdain. No, it's an awkward situation. We have had news recently that, he that was to succeed our leader has died, and now there is some confusion, some consternation about who is to be next. Fardred had spoken about his son. It's a confusing situation. It would be best if you came with us.
Can he be moved? I asked Syrian.
What's the rest of Faroth's body like in terms of state?
As far as I'm aware, like, he got pretty badly beaten up by the Black Númenórian, but the downing blow was from a Nazgul that struck him straight across the face with his serrated blade. So I think it would be just the usual battlefield injuries. The face was the problem. I'll be honest. Story of his life.
A Morgul wound.
Okay. In that case, I would pay most attention to the actual torso, the stomach area, which is obviously a vulnerable part in that kind of situation, and sort of just take a quick look at the arms as well. But I sort of lift him up slightly by the back of his neck and say, yes, he is movable.
Good. Well, then we should make haste. This is not a safe place. The longer we are here, the longer the enemy has to realize that we are here. We've bought us some time, but not much.
El Sila Lumina Vomentiengua, says Beregond. There's a star shines upon the hour of the meeting of our ways in Sindarin.
Halbrand kind of like nods and almost smiles. It must be preordained fate, perhaps, that we have met you here. We'll come. We must go quickly.
Beregond waits for instruction from Syrian on how to lift Faroth, and following his instructions, we'll get Faroth onto a horse or something and move off.
I was going to ask actually, since I was absent last time, like, how many horses do we have left? What's the situation on
yes. You each have a horse. You have a special horse. The name, in fact.
That's fine. I could tell from your tones of voices it wasn't too bad because there was no panic in there. But okay, in that case, I say to Beregond, just make sure he is kept level. And I sort of encourage him to carry his legs maybe, or his lower half, while I sort of balance his shoulder blades. And we sort of gently lift him up onto a horse. And
it's clear from the way he's doing it that it's a real effort for Beregond to lift Faroth, and Cynric or Nar could do it much easier than him, but he's not willing to look weak in front of these foreigners. Yeah,
I think they kind of like look and one of them probably stepped forward to help, but I imagine that Beregond is like, no, I must do it.
I would actually nod an agreement and say, you know what they say about too many cooks.
So you get Farah saddled up. I think at this stage Cynric would return. He had ridden after them, after the Nazgul, like a maniac. But I think at this stage he would return to the area.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly the details of how far he would have cantered down the hill or to the edges of where the top, but he probably would have been alerted by all these lights and these Dunedain fanning out and around, and had begun his like slow canter back, and works his way back up to the top or to where people are as they're putting Fareth onto the horse. It's a good job you came when you did, Dunedain.
As your friend said, it seems that the stars have shone upon the hour of our meeting.
They were strong and in number, and obviously prepared. We have not been able to shake that Númenórian. He's followed us across most of Middle-earth.
But he was joined this time by other riders, other foul men. Were, I say, looking round at the rangers, at Cynric, at everybody.
Halbrad, like nods grimly. Those are the 9 in these lands of late. You've seen them more than once, terrorizing. They're searching for something.
Tinuviela, I say to myself.
Well, we're also searching for, well, many things. Allies, mostly. You have proven yourself in our time of need. Hopefully we can do the same for you. And he kind of like looks at everyone loading Faroth up, who he probably did see fall, but it didn't register entirely in his battle rage or his reveries back to the past. It seems we cannot go on any further without some sort of aid. How far to your nearest sanctuary?
Nearest a day, but we should continue to Illuminas. There will be significant forces there to protect us. There will be healers. It's our stronghold.
Sirin, can he travel that far?
I take another look at Faroth and I say, I think so. He is very resilient.
As are we all.
I mean, skirmish won't stop him.
Right. Well, lead on, Rangers. We don't have time to waste.
No, indeed. Follow me. And they begin to kind of scale down the mountainside. They don't have horses with them here. So you can kind of make your way down, and they will kind of keep pace as your horses kind of walk for a couple of hours until you come to like an old ruined sort of castle. And inside there, their horses are stabled up. They would like remount there, get on, and then together you can kind of take off at a better speed, riding through the darkness, through the night. And you can tell that these men are experts by the way that they ride, the way that they go through every action. No wasted energy. Always someone is far in front, far behind, and on each side as well, keeping an eye out. There are no surprises. And because of their efficiency and their skill and their expertise, nothing hassles you as you travel through these lands. They take a wide berth around Fornost, which once was the capital of Arnor, but was taken by the Witch King of Angmar. And Halbrad would say to you as you're riding by that it is a place of shadows and of ghosts now, fallen. Perhaps it could be reclaimed someday, but not this day.
We are working to see the light reclaimed, all that the darkness has taken from it. These include your lands, but they include many others. We've been in council with a great many powerful allies, the elves and the wizards, and they agree something must be done. We are hoping you men of Arnor will be part of that.
I agree that something should be done. We have been doing it for years here. Although now we are leaderless, we are awash with no direction. Perhaps with direction, well, who knows?
Well, I hope we are bringing you this leader and this direction, I say quietly.
Yeah, if Halbrad hears, he doesn't say anything and continues riding.
How did Fardred fall?
Oh, Fardred is still alive. He was not the leader of our people, though. It was another, an Aragorn. He fell to these wraiths, it seems. And the elves claimed his body. They buried him in their city, not our city, not his city.
Hmm. Why would they do that?
I am unsure. For countless years, we have been allies with Lord Elrond and those in Imladris. This is a strange situation. We're not sure why they would do such a thing. Aragorn was chieftain among our people. But now he is gone, and we have many who might replace him, although there's no clear succession, and so there must be a moot.
The way of elves are not always the way of men. Maybe this Aragorn fitted in well with the elves. I don't know. If they liked him, maybe he is more content amongst them than amongst men.
Perhaps. I did not know him well. I know that he spent some time in Rivendell as a child. Maybe that was it. But come, we should ride.
Tyrion is quite engrossed in his new stallion, getting used to it. The girth of the beast as well. It feels like a very hefty horse. But he's sort of starting to get to know him, or well, I suppose the best thing is that he sort of caresses the mane every so often. But he is pondering about what the Rangers have said, and he sort of reflects back to the times when he felt so at home with the elves. And he wonders to himself, maybe it would be quite a pleasant meeting if Aragorn and I should cross paths.
I was muted that whole time. That's a bummer.
Oh.
I was wondering, I was like, seems very quiet, but
Yeah.
someone's definitely talking.
Apologies for that. I was talking to myself.
Cue flashback.
Love it, man. Let's have a take two.
Yeah, so as you're thinking wistfully about your time with the elves, you move ever further away from them and further into the north. The next 2 days go by in a blur, uneventful. Again, these rangers, they provide the necessary like camouflage, the supervision. When you break for camp, it's all set up very quickly. There's always food, always drink. These men and women are used to living in the land and living out here in the wilderness. You can tell it doesn't seem a struggle to them at all. But as you kind of come to the end of the evening of the third day, you can see that there's like a sort of cliff face ahead, and you can hear sort of the lapping of water and get the smell of water as well. And you eventually come to this kind of in the middle of the cliff face, a stairway that's been carved. Looks like hundreds of years ago. You can see that in the ground there are like the remains of flagstones that would have once been a beautiful white path of stone, but now they kind of just jut out at weird angles from the muck, little icebergs of white in this like mucky path. And you take the path up to a gatehouse. Again, it was white once, although now it's mostly covered in vines and moss. Sort of mucky covering to the white stone. There's a portcullis hanging inside the gate, although it's not the original one. You can tell it's like sheet iron hammered together. And as you kind of approach the gate, there's a little whistle which is responded to at the gatehouse, and the portcullis begins to be drawn up, and you're kind of ushered through. And when you come out the other side, you can see that there is a city here. You would not have thought so from the other side. This cliff face you can see forms a natural sort of wall around the city, and you cannot see it from the outside. Mountains and cliffs protect it. But inside, there is a city, definitely a city of men. You can tell from the stonework, white stone, very prevalent, although again, much of it is covered in muck and filth. You can see, as you look, a great river kind of bisects the city, and that there are like enormous buildings fallen to pieces all over the place, cathedrals and amphitheaters and things like that, all ruined. And this river, Barandouin, leads to the lake Nenuyal, which is the huge lake kind of in Evendim here, this part of the world. And this is where you would find the old capital of Arnor, Númenór. And so the rangers lead you slowly through these streets, past all this kind of ruined finery. And you would see that many of the buildings are like collapsed and ruined, but some of them have been ruined on purpose. You would see that there are deliberate dead ends created in various parts of the city, and you would see that there's men standing on many of the roofs and stuff like that, keeping an eye out. It's not heavily populated at all. In fact, the part of the city that you've come to so far, which would be the west bank of the city, is almost empty. And as you kind of continue, you eventually turn to cross a bridge, and this bridge is heavily defended. As you can see when you cross, are the other 3 bridges that cross this river. There have been structures built here, like wooden, stone structures, sort of makeshift barriers and stuff. But you're allowed to pass through. So what are you thinking when you see this ruined city?
That is quite a fascinating structure. So different from anything I've seen. It's bing bong bong. It's quite a ruin. And yet you live within it, and it's as if it is totally intact.
Parts of the city are intact, says Halbrad. Although many more parts of the city are ruined, destroyed. This city was abandoned long ago. Although this was the first home of the kings of Arnor.
Yes,
now,
I can see.
It's a shadow.
There are signs in the structures and the architecture that this does date back to the time of Arnor. Very fascinating. And you see Cyril almost kind of zone out as he's just sort of staring all the different angles and even how the light comes onto it.
Yeah,
So at this stage,
I think go ahead.
Sorry, no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
One of the rangers who's traveling with you, Celefarn, he would kind of like see you staring, Syrian, at all of the wonderment, and he would just like begin launching into a lesson about the city. He would tell you, this is the amphitheater of Arvaleg, and he would like tell you all about how it was built, and he would just like rant at you about the history of this place. And he would do it in a way, and you are very clever, so you would notice this, that makes it seem grander than Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil.
Mm.
He's not like hateful about those places, but he's just very proud of this place, you know, and he knows it doesn't get a lot of rep. And so he would say, oh, and this cathedral here, the largest man ever built. You might find out if you did your research, you would see that this is in fact 3 cubits larger than the cathedral in Minas Tirith, and so on.
I suppose I would, if he says something that petty, I would laugh in my head, but I would remain diplomatic with him and say things like, well, the architecture definitely differs from north to south, east to west.
Yes, indeed. And
such a thing is not comparable to Minas Tirith after all. It is so different.
Quite right. Quite right.
Now that's a fine building. That's a fine building, points out Beregond, pointing out something that's probably Gondor's embassy or something like that in ages gone by. What was that?
if you do that, then Syrian just smiles at you while the ranger isn't looking.
Yes, that was the residence of one of the ambassadors from Minas Ithil.
It's not as big as the other buildings, but it does have a certain beauty, I admit.
He kind of like chuckles and he kind of like looks at you and he says, of all of the incredible architecture in this city, all of it, these great cathedrals and these amphitheaters, and you somehow find the one building that is styled like your home. And he like claps you on the shoulder.
We all prefer what we are used to, I guess. food is probably very wholesome and things, but oh, for some Gondor swan.
I think Cynric might have been nearer the back of the group with no, because everyone else is invested to a certain degree, either it being their home or them being fascinated by the architecture. And he just, the only person he can really sort of grumble to would be no, and he would say something along the lines of, "The city is grand in scale, but not so much in nature." And he kind of like looks at these disheveled buildings covered in muck. It is a testament to man, but also a testament to disrepair.
Yeah, Nora would say something about the eternity of dwarven cities, how nothing is ever out of place in the great halls of his home.
It's at this point, Faroth has cracked open his eyes. He is heavily bruised all around his eyes, and he has been conscious at times throughout the journey. And it's only now that he's properly waking up. And the first thing that he sees is the entryway to this this wondrous city. And he says, croaking as almost just to himself, and he says, I open my eyes and I see home again. It's like I've woken up. And then he looks over and he spots Cynric, and he says, but it wasn't a dream, and you can't tell whether that's disappointment or not.
He probably like raises an eyebrow, quirks his head at you. Did you hit your head quite hard, my friend?
That's the fortunate thing about being in the position we're in. We have people to do that for us. Farrell looks around. Is there anything that anywhere in particular that stands out to him, Lloyd?
Yeah, probably there's a huge sort of dome building, although the dome has collapsed inward. This would have been the Dome of Stars, which is like a sort of astronomy, yes, like study of the stars and of the sea. You know, the men of Númenór were incredible sailors, and there was a big tradition among them. And so this would have been like a home for like the nobility, like sort of grand hall. Although you would see the Great Dome, which is probably the biggest you've seen, is collapsed and ruined.
And Farrell surveys this kingdom in collapse and reminisces, but he tries to stay quiet and still to retain his strength.
Yeah, you would see definitely now as you're moving that a lot of it has been deliberately either destroyed or abandoned, and you can see that like some they've made deliberate dead ends, or like plazas have been cleared of like cover, but then the buildings around them all have cover on the top, and you think that this place would be a nightmare to try and take. It would be street to street fighting, and the archers of this city would be able to hold it for weeks, months, and yeah, you think even in this state it would be a nightmare to capture.
And Faroth sort of cracks a sly smile, the familiar ingenuity of the Rangers bringing humor to his heart. And he turns and he actually shares that information with the rest of the group. He tells them about how all of this has been orchestrated to funnel vast portions of the enemy in for basically a mass slaughter if anyone were to try and take it.
There is grandeur of the fallen north here, memory of forgotten times, but there's also strength without a doubt. Let us see what we can do to restore that grandeur.
We shall see, Farrell says uncertainly, and continues on.
Cellophane would say, it's true that the city lacks some of its previous luster, but the enemy will not take us without a fight. We will die here and bleed him for his arrogance. If he dare step foot here in my city. And there's like a fierce pride in him, you can tell. And a bunch of the others kind of like nod grimly.
You would indeed, I say, looking up at all the defences. This is a mightily defended city. But under my breath I add, but the enemy has a lot of blood.
Yeah, they do the same sort of grim nod. They know, they've seen it. You're led now northwards towards, you can see that there's a great tower and a bridge that crosses or stretches behind it. This is a famous bridge called the Ariant. It stretches for almost a mile from here to an island on the lake. The island is where the castle was and is, which is one of the many castles of Elendil. And you can see it. It looks much like the castles that you've seen in other Gondorian cities or cities of men. All white stone, sort of flying towers, very grand. The architecture of Númenór, very hard to replicate. They don't build them like this anymore. And I think, like Cynric would know that better than most, that there aren't these kind of castles in Rohan. There aren't these kind of castles anywhere, except for very few places on Middle-earth. And so you're brought across this bridge. And you can see that below the bridge, there's the water of the lake, but then once you kind of get to the island, the bridge stretches further. So you're standing hundreds of feet above the island. So that there are these sort of wild gardens. You can see the paths like carefully laid out, these beautiful sort of geometric shapes, although it's all very overgrown and wild. This would have been the Gilgant, which is like the famous garden of Anuminas. A couple of minutes go by and eventually they bring you to the castle itself. And you enter in. And there is not so much ruin here. There are tapestries that are clean and kept well. There are fires burning inside the castle. It's bright and airy. There are people bustling about here and there. At this stage, Halbrad kind of like steps to you, Varath, and he says, "I will go and fetch your Lord Father. There have been rooms made above for you on the 6th floor. Go and rest. I will send a healer. We'll eat soon. I'll send your father to speak with you. There will be a moot, Farath. You'll need to speak."
And as he's about to turn to leave, Farath presses his hand on his shoulder and he says, "Thank you for coming to help us."
There's strength in many yet.
Farath gives a nod of gratitude, but then wordlessly turns to his friends and motions for them to maybe go to one of these rooms because I think we need to have a chat. And he hobbles up like he's pulled his hood right over his face to sort of obscure the damage that's been done.
Beregond needs no encouragement to talk because he's instantly drawn to the tapestries, saying, "This one must be Valandil's shortly after the fall of his brothers at Gladden Fields to orcs. He can't have been more than about 12 or 13 at this time, and yet he inherited the Kingdom of the North. And this one must be Eldakar, his son. Not to be confused with his famous namesake, Eldakar of Gondor, of course." I go on, and I'm just going through all the tapestries and working out who must be and everything like that.
I think Cynric is like dismounting and saying to Ciaro, and the stables, but he catches Beregond already intrigued in the tapestries that hang probably in the antechambers before we move up, and just sort of shouts as he's leaving, "How long till they make a tapestry of us, do you think?"
He probably doesn't hear you.
I was just waiting if he had anything else to finish. So I would essentially also be zoned out looking at these tapestries, almost in kind of like a sense of slight paranoia, just checking every few seconds to make sure that the design wasn't going to shift at any point to that of that infamous tapestry that we encountered a while back.
Yeah, I think like as you're looking at the various tapestries, and they're all it tends to depict like heroes of Arnor, like these men in plate, riding triumphantly. Although some of them depict the enemy as well, not Sauron, but orcs and goblins and things like that being slain. And I think that when you look at tapestry of Isildur, that you would like get this sort of weird sense of disconnection, and you would just for a second see a flash of the eye, and then you would shake it from your mind.
Oh, Cynric, were you speaking to me?
Well, anyone really, I guess. You're always so engrossed in these tapestries. I was just musing that maybe we would end up on one.
Maybe. They are a way of expressing the history that has gone. But look at them too long. Perhaps you, and he can't quite finish his sentence. He keeps seeing Isildur in the tapestries, and he kind of storms off away from them slightly, trying to become more interested in maybe an archway or something.
There'll be no tapestries at all if we do not discuss our next move. Come. Baroth is grim and not in a good mood.
Now, my friend, be still. You are still very injured.
And I thank you for your work, Syrian, as ever. Frankly, it has been a while since I've been around the majority of my people, in particular, my father. This could be problematic.
I make sure that I'm out of earshot, if possible, of the other Dunedain. And I say, yes, when we mentioned your father's name to them, they seemed uneasy.
My father is a troubled man. The weight of the world rests on his shoulders. At least that's what I tell people in polite conversation. And he sort of breaks his grim mood a little bit with a slight curl to the mouth, and you see that the scar that moves over his lips stretches slightly, and he winces, and I think he's got a cloth that he basically holds to his face every now and then because it's still a mess of black and red just down the side of his face. Healing, but still raw.
Yeah, I mean, if the gash was big enough, I'd have probably tried to actually sew it, or something similar. So I just sort of put my hand out and say, try not to move the muscles too much, or else it will feel a lot worse.
Okay, Farrell says, trying not to move his lips. And he moves away.
So you guys make your way up the stairs, 6 flights of stairs to your appointed rooms. Celifern brings you up here, and he shows you. It's like a bright, airy. Here, there are beds, tables, like a hotel room, I guess. Although no baths, obviously. Even so, it's quite comfortable. It's probably nice to sit down on something soft for once. And he says, Halbrad is going to get your father. He will speak with you soon. I imagine now that you're here, there'll be a moot tomorrow. Although, we shall see. If you need anything, just call.
Farrell.
Do you have any
nods.
enemies here, Farah? I say once the Dunedain have left. Or rivals? Perhaps enemies are too strong for this place. We have met our enemies and they are of a different metal, but rivals. People who would not support you.
Truth. One who would fit that description has been with us for some time. Erlendor was... we never used to get along. I don't know that would have changed that. We shall see. But the lines of my people have been divided for many, many years. As I understand it, Aragon was a bridge between them, but now that he's gone, I fear things are going to revert back to the way they were, and that we cannot allow.
Maybe I've been with the elves for too long, but the way they were speaking about this moot, it was very much almost like squabbling children. I could feel this sort of almost like bickering has been happening. It seems very complex unnecessarily.
Politics in a word, Syrian.
Oh yes, I know of politics. I just did not expect it so far away from any large political settlement.
Politics is lunacy when we're facing an outward threat of the enemy that's gathering against us. We must...
I suppose I need to behave like a man again. My mindset is still that of an elf.
They bicker because they are afraid. They want what's best for our people. It's just sometimes, most of the time, they do not agree.
We shall have to change that.
No.
Fractured they are weak. United is the only chance we have against the shadow.
As it's been stated, I am going to have to speak at this moot. And I could do with your counsel. You will be allowed to be present with me, I'm sure. I just feel perhaps it would be best for us to go over exactly what we want to inform my people of. Are we as direct as possible? Or... And he sort of shrugs, not really knowing really where to begin. His brain still addled by the concussion of being hit in the head with a sword.
I believe at this point, with all that we have seen in the past few months, it is something that we need to do in terms of speaking as plainly as possible to these people. We need action, not meetings. And if we tell them exactly what is going on, we can make a plan. No voting, no bickering, no multiple ideas. We think of something and we relentlessly pursue it.
You have wisdom, Syrian. Let us see what they have to say before we jump to any conclusions.
And then we tell them what we have seen. And you
Yes.
see sort of a slight shadow come across Syrian when he says that.
Not only do we tell them what we have seen, but what we have done, what we have conquered. If they live in the shadow of Arnor and constantly fight the darkness, then they should be able to action as soon as Syrian wishes. A decisive blow will put them all in line. And the enemy on the back foot.
There's a knock on the door.
Enter.
The door opens and your father walks in, Farah. He is wearing armor, as always. I don't think you've ever seen him not wear his ranger's garb. He's got like a brown cloak that hangs over him. He's got short cropped hair and a sort of salt and pepper beard. He kind of like steps into the room. He looks about. Huh. What happened to your face?
I was fighting the enemy, Father.
I've not got such a scar. I fought the enemy for all my life.
And Farrell says under his breath, well, maybe you weren't doing it right. But not audible enough to hear.
Looks to me like you were careless.
We were on our way back to bring word to you, Father.
Halbrad tells me that they rescued you.
They were of tactical support, admittedly.
I see. Who are your companions?
My companions are those that I have met on my travels and have helped in our plight, a plight given to us from the steward of Gondor. This is Syrian.
We'll introduce them.
He pauses for a second. This is Sirion. He is a friend of mine from Gondor.
I give him a greeting in Sindarin and just pull the biggest Joker-like smile with my hand across my chest.
He sneers.
And this is Cyneric of Rohan. He is a mighty horse lord who has fought on my side many times.
Snowflake squares up to him a little, not going to take the same sneering.
Yeah, he gives you a once over. You're definitely much bigger than he is. Looks you up and down. Mm-hmm.
And this is Na, the mighty dwarven warrior of the Iron Hills.
Mighty. He like looks. His look lingers on Nar's leg. I see.
And before he can comment any further, and he says, and this is Beregond also. He is sworn to me, and he's also a man of Gondor. He's brave and cunning, and is a strategist at that.
Of the line of the marshals of Ithilien, I say. And who are you? I ask him.
You swore yourself to my son?
I swore myself to the bravest man I have met in all my travels of Middle-earth.
He must not have travelled far.
I have travelled over 100 leagues and have battled the enemy on all sides of the Misty Mountains. And you?
I am Fardred, of the line of Anarion. I have killed many whites in my time, many wraiths. I have seen the enemy for more summers than most men who live. And I have dealt with them, and I have led my people.
Beregond looks out over this ruined city and says, you're a proud man.
I have much to be proud of, Beregond of Minas Ithil.
Father, there is a moot tomorrow, as you know. Is that why you're here?
It is.
What happened? What has happened? How could our people fall into such disarray so quickly?
The son of Arathorn had kept our people in check for a long time. He was the clear leader of our people. And now he's gone. Leader. And the factions squabble. And they look for someone new. Someone strong enough, someone wise enough to take our people and point them in the right direction, to forge them into a blade with which to kill the enemy. Or a shield against which to have the enemy smash.
Let us not waste words, Father. Our people have been divided long before Aragorn, son of Arathorn, fell. There are deep-seated problems that we need to address, and they need to be addressed quickly. We need to unite.
And you will be the one to do this? He's got a grin in his face.
And he stares straight back at his father and he says, if it must be me, then I shall do this duty.
I see. But you're not even the head of this line, of this family. You're a boy.
Faroth rounds his shoulders and he bites his tongue.
Your boy has slain black Númenórians, slain ancient troll kings, slain the wraiths you so lustfully brag about, and he has climbed mountain. He has parleyed with elven kings and with the wizards, and has travelled most of the length and breadth of Middle-earth. If he is but a boy, what claims do you have to manship?
Oh, shit.
Your people are
Yeah,
pissy.
looks at you.
Okay, carry on.
Faroth interjects. Faroth interjects, and he looks at Cyneric and puts a hand on his shoulder and gives him sort of like a reassuring look to say, it's okay. Let me deal with this. He looks once again to Fardred, his father, and he says, what my friend here says is true. We have all faced many terrors in the time that I was last here. And we faced them together. Our people must do the same. And I will be the one to lead us.
You will not. I am the head of this family, and when I go to the moot tomorrow, you will support me.
Faroth looks at him and he says, Father, and then he doesn't know what to say, and he just looks to the ground.
All my life I have fought in the darkness, and I have kept it at bay as best I could. I have trained you as best I could. I have worked all of my life to become the leader of my people. And I will not see it snatched away now by you.
I was always told as a boy that the pupil always becomes better than the teacher. That is the mark of a great teacher.
I am no great teacher.
Then what are you, if not that to your son?
I am to be his king, his leader, the leader of these people here.
My father is right. And he looks to his friends, and then looks back at his father, and he says, I was wrong to call your leadership into question. Yes, Father, I will support you in the moot tomorrow. Forgive me.
Good.
Is there anything else? Is there any service I could do for you, my lord?
There will be many who will speak against me, and many who will speak for me. What you could do for me. Arahad is our greatest rival.
I remember him.
See what you can dig up. See what you can dig up about Arahad. He has a strong claim.
It shall be done, Lord.
Good. I'll see you at the moot. And he turns to leave.
You will. The door closes. Faroth turns to his friends, and he gives them all a look of gratitude for speaking for him. But he doesn't say anything. He just moves to sit on this room and begins to think to himself.
When you turn to see, probably still quite close to you, is Cyneric, and he's still in that tall, broad-shouldered, like squaring off as he was. Only he's bristling, but he holds his tongue as you look at him, and then move by to sit down. You might look across at Syrian, who also tried to plead the case, and kind of almost like shrug his shoulders, like what's up with this sudden change of heart?
As I'm sort of seeing the room go quiet, I'm just going to stroke my beard and look for a book, if there are any around.
Sure, there'd be a couple, just like histories of this city.
And I say, I have no change of heart. I
meant Faroth's change of heart, not yours, sorry.
Oh, right, okay. I wasn't sure if you meant like everybody's, but okay. In that case, he says, I'm not sure. I have grown used to Faroth's mannerisms. I think he has something up his sleeve.
Farrell looks to his friends again. And he says, perhaps, but I am in two minds. I spoke rashly before. My father is right. He has more of a claim to lead our people than I do, and I respect that. But they don't know what we know. And they haven't
Indeed.
seen.
That is the
They haven't
most
seen.
single thing I'm worried about with this moot. He will stride boisterously around everyone, claiming he knows everything, but he has seen nothing. And he will lead his people into the dirt.
My father is a competent man, and he is a knowledgeable man. He is a skilled man. He is a tactician and a master at combat. However, he is solitary, and I fear he will not accept reaching out to the other peoples of Middle-earth. That is what I am fearful of.
You seem to have quite an icy relationship with him. Not that I blame you.
When I was 10 years old, my father, he led me to the barrows. I had no brothers or sisters. It was only me before my mother passed away. And he told me, you are to stay here. You are to stay in the barrows so you can see the true effect of the shadow on this world. And I saw it. Oh, I saw it. You could say, yes, indeed, there is an icy relationship there.
Well, that is an ordeal I wouldn't wish upon anybody. Not even those who killed my father.
It did teach me a lesson, Syrian, that I cannot deny. It taught me that our world, our life rests upon a knife's edge, and at any point we could fall either way, into the darkness or into death. There is method to what many would believe to be his madness.
So what has your father done exactly to counter this knife edge, apart from leave you in a place of the dead?
Do not mistake me, I do not defend his ways. But my father has our people's best interests at heart. And as I say, not every people in Middle-earth, just us.
I get up as I would have been resting for a little bit in a chair, and whatever book I have in my hand, I just slam it shut. And I fully intend to read it in a bit, but I stroke my beard once again and say to you, Faroth, this is your choice. Just know that I will follow you whichever choice you make. And I retire for a while.
Sorry. Am I? Oh.
What was that, guys?
As Syrian says his piece, there's a grinding of stone as Beragon finds a little secret hidey place behind a stone wall that he's been sort of digging around at, and it proves empty, but he's found a little secret sort of safe hole at the back for storing valuables, though it appears to be empty. Oh. And he closes it again and looks disappointed.
Faroth looks over to Cyneric and says, Any counsel from you, my friend?
I too have seen the darkness. I have seen my fathers and my brothers fall in front of me while we fought the darkness. We did not lock our children away to be preyed on by the spirits of this world. We died fighting. My father died for doing something. You may be the only child, and I may be the only or the first heir of my line left. I say, like we have done with the elves and those we have counseled before them, that we tell them, your people need to be united, not under some man who would carry on playing in his little secret capital covered in dirt and till the ruins finally fall apart around him. Elrond lived in a pristine castle, but was still willing to come out into the world and fight. We need to convince someone, or have you take the stage. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it if not for one nation. We almost stand together. Surely they would see, perhaps more than most, that this land, Arnor, needs leading from the darkness and into the light. It is not a defensive war we must fight, but an aggressive one. We need to rally people to our cause, not to your father's.
You're right. Baragond. My father mentioned this Arahad. I know of him. I have met him a few times. You are a man of investigative skill, and your mastery of subterfuge is without question. Do you believe this night before the moot, you may be able to discover anything about these people?
You know me, I take a thrill in creeping up on and others, and I'm sure that I could eavesdrop, but kind of breaking for dirt amongst our possible allies falls ill with me.
Are you able to speak to them? Just gauge
the men of Arnor seem to be the men of Arnor have a great and glorious past that is wrought in the stones around us, and live in dirt, and their minds seem to have wrought their own ruin to a certain extent. This kingdom was united and strong. It was stronger than Gondor at the beginning, but it war, the three kingdoms of Arthedain, Rudor, and Cardolan rose up against each other, and Arnor fell. And it was this petty squabbling amongst themselves. This is what we must fight. We should not enter into their fights, but fight against it. That's my counsels, my lord. I hope I have not spoken out of place.
And Faroth nods, and he says, I appreciate your words, all of you. I will not dig up dirt, as my father rightly put it, on this Arahad. He has every right to put his plight into the moot as well as we do. I just have to ensure that our need is the greatest.
You said Erlendor was the heir of another grand house here, or another line. Hopefully, like, he has seen your capability, seen our capability, and seen what we must face. Perhaps he can persuade his family of our cause, and perhaps we can talk to this Arahad and gauge his intent, and others similarly who wish to take it to these lands of Angmar and no longer languish in its shadow.
And Lloyd, just as a question, because I know this could basically, do the families talk to each other before the moot, or is there kind of like do they avoid each other because they don't want them to get a handle on what their strategies are going to be in the moot? Do you know what I mean, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think it depends entirely on the family involved. I think like to go, someone has to put you forward, right? So like when you go tomorrow, someone has to suggest you as the new leader. You can't do it yourself. So there's probably a bit of like of handshaking involved, and then someone from another family will put you forward, and then you put them forward. So you both get to take part. So that's probably one of the kind of things that goes on. I don't think there's any like hard ban or like tactical reasons where you wouldn't talk to somebody else. They're not going to be giving you deep strategies or secrets, most of the time. So I think, yeah, whatever you need to do.
Then I must speak with Erlander. As you say, he has seen what we have seen, at least in part. Perhaps if we both agree to put each other forward, then we shall see.
My captain, let me go in your place. Sometimes your modesty means you cannot sing your own praises as well as perhaps one of us would do. Let one of us go and
Very well. In that case, I shall go and introduce myself to this Arahad in the meantime. Thank you, Beragond. That means a lot. And with that, Faroth is going to go and look for Arahad, and I think he will want, maybe if we split up, so some of us go and see Arahad, some of us go and check on Erlander. What do you guys think? Who wants to come with me?
I'm happy to go either way. Is there, and mostly to Lloyd, is there like another cause we could be working on a plight? Like, is there like a popular vote? Or is there something that Syrian might be able to dig up about the old rules of the moot or something, and some sort of, like Julius Caesar-esque proxy leader that could be put in place temporarily and take charge, or just any kind of loophole?
It's a good question.
Just another angle we could work on rather than squabbling nobles.
Definitely. I think we might take a quick break here anyway, and I'll think about sneaky details and stuff, and then we can go and do the various talking and goings on, and then hopefully the move at the end. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. We'll call it 5 minutes.
This is so awesome. Cool. See you in a sec.
Right, I'm back. How's your battery holding up, Caius?
I've got officially just under 3 hours, so we might be all right.
Oh yeah, it should be fine then.
Battery.
Yeah.
To be honest, if it's running very close and we still haven't finished, I can go and plug it in the toilets, but I'm not sure I want to go.
No, I think it's fine. We'll probably be only another hour or so, I'd say.
I've got a kind of screwball up my sleeve that I might throw in.
Getting nervous.
I probably won't, but we'll see what happens. Does the enemy hold Fornost now then? Is it sort of overrun by the enemy, or is it just an abandoned wilderness?
It's abandoned and haunted, so it's like
It's like the Dead Marshes or
exactly.
the Paths of the Dead or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like it was attacked and defeated when the Witch King invaded Arnor, and since it's been like this haunted sort of wasteland city.
I don't know if it's just how I've been feeling or something, but I just had the thought that Cynric would be kind of fed up. Like they've had to trail across Middle-earth and give these pleas to everyone, and just no one has been entirely receptive of them. But
yeah,
he's just sick of people like squabbling, and I'm not saying it's going to change. And like the elves actually came around possibly easier than the men might, but I think also that like Rohan is a Rohirrim is like a relatively sort of stable place. Like people know their place, and I think it's quite like feudal.
Definitely.
And there is just a guy on top, and everyone below listens to him, and it kind of just branches out from there with the equivalent of nobles and everything, and they just run fairly efficiently. Although like they don't have the grandeur of all these other places, it's like nice and functional and not grand in any way. But
yeah, I think so too. Like, I mean, say what you want about tyranny, it works, you know. Feudalism.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, everyone does their job, and it's just like there isn't that much in terms of politics. There's just because it is just like a monarchy or whatever. It's a king. Yeah.
Technically, it does depend which feudalism you're looking at. You know, William the Conqueror worked efficiently, but there were some really bad ones.
It's very true.
If you're looking at Tsarist Russia, that wasn't so efficient.
But just coming up against these politics time and time again, and politics probably don't really almost exist where he comes from. It's just
he's a king and a lord.
Yeah. And that's why I did the whole speech of like my family have died doing things, not playing games by putting their children into barrows and stuff. This is not what men do.
It's one of the great things about it is that the people of Rohan are just like rad. They're great, you know, like they're just better than the people of Gondor most of the time. In my view, you know, they just like seem really, really stern and like forthright, and like they don't do a lot of mincing of words. They're just like real honest,
I think
sort of, you know,
that like Minas Tirith and Arnor, like they're clinging on to older relics and grandeur, and they live in these ruins, whereas like the Rohirrim have made it on their own and built themselves up from the bottom, like. So it's all them. Like they've earned whatever accolades they have. They're not in these big white shiny cities or.
Tolkien says that sort of the Rohirrim were like the men in the first age of Middle Earth. They were the sort of young, fresh sort of the ones who later became the Númenóreans and everything like that. But before they became the Númenóreans, they were like the Rohirrim.
Awesome.
Fresh.
Validated there.
Yeah.
So guys, I have a plan. But I'm going to need you to trust me on this, okay?
Okay.
So I told you,
man.
it's your mannerisms.
We shall see.
You are my captain, and I will trust you whether you're right or wrong.
Comforting to know.
So, who's going where? What's the plan?
So, whoever wants to come with me, Faroth is going to go and speak with Arahad. That's what he'll be going. And I would appreciate someone to come with me, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
Syrian's plan was to read up a bit, since he's only limited time, on the history of the movement of the Rangers, as in the political movement, not the literal movement. And if possible, to try and do this in places where there are other Dunedain perhaps talking about their side of things with the mood, how they feel about certain people, and trying to get a feel for other people's opinions, basically.
Okay, sure. So you could take the books with you and go down to like the mess hall area and like kind of half read, half eavesdrop on going on. Cool.
Totally.
And then who's going to speak with Erlendur?
You taking that, Caius?
Yes. Sorry, my microphone is very slow in unmuting.
Okay.
Okay, great.
In that case, I'll go with Faroth.
Okay.
Because I'm sure Erlandur's a pretty easy sell. Like, we saved you off the side of a mountain. Like, now's the time.
So you kind of get together in the room and you like discuss tactics, and it's like break, and then you go in your different directions. So Farah and Cynric, you move through this castle, and you kind of ask around a few people where this man is, this Arahad, and they would point you outside of the castle in one of the stately homes. He and his retinue have taken their rest, and so you would like walk there, and there'd be a fairly stern-looking man standing at the door. Not a ranger, it doesn't look like, just like in armor with a spear and shield.
Greetings. My name is Faroth. I am son of Fardred. I am here to speak with Arahad, son of Belagorn.
Oh, sorry, my lord. 1 sec. And he goes inside for a second, and he comes back out, opens the door, and he says, "In you go, my lord."
Faroth inclines his head graciously and walks in.
Yeah, so you can. Yes, of course. Yeah. So the two of you walk in to this house, into the hallway, and then into a side room, sort of a big living room. There is a bit of mold, but it's mostly been scraped away. Quite a nice place. The furniture, some of it's a little bit moth-eaten, but most of it's clean and nice. There's a big table where a couple of men are sitting. They're playing a card game. And Arahad turns and he looks up and he smiles. "Faroth, son of Fardred, please take a seat." He's probably 50. He looks well for his age, as many of the Dunedain do. He's got long hair tied back and a thick beard.
Faroth once again inclines his head in a sign of respect, and he says, "It is a pleasure to see you again, Arahad. I remember as a boy, I remember your father. He was a good man."
Best.
I'm here to speak to you about the moot, as I'm sure you are aware.
This isn't a social call?
There'll be time for that later. He takes the chair and sits in front of him, and he says casually, but the intent is clearly there in his voice as well, and he says, "So what do you make of this particular moot, my friend? These would last weeks, sometimes months, even 2 years, one as I recall. Are you ready for such a debate?"
He kind of rolls his eyes when you mentioned the 2 years. He's got a grin in his face. To be honest, Faroth, I find it all rather dull. I find it a waste of time. We don't have time. The enemy does not take a break, and nor should we. We don't have time to sit around and debate endlessly.
That is where we agree, my friend. As you may be aware, my father is being put forward in the moot to take leadership of the Dunedain.
I had heard, yes.
I am also here to tell you something that I hope will be able to remain in confidence.
You're a good man, Faroth. I can see that you've grown into one. You even got a scar on your face. Says something about you, I think. You have my word.
Does Faroth believe him? I would roll a dice, but I'm quite enjoying not at this point. I'll roll an insight if you like.
No, I think you would get the impression, and like of the stories you've heard about this man, that he's not a bullshitter, you know. Yeah.
That's fine. And Faroth nods and he says, "My father, as much as he has a certain right to stand to become our leader, I fear things will remain the same under his guidance. And I'm here to tell you that I intend to be put forward in this moot also."
Huh. Your father has more claim than most others, I have to say. He's been serving a long time. He is a well-known name. He has many friends. Well, allies. I wouldn't call them friends. He says with a grin.
Faroth returns it.
Don't get me wrong. Your father has done a lot for our people. But we often say that the people of Arnor, that the Dunedain could be forged into a sword with which to slash the enemy, or a shield against which to break them. I tend to favor the sword, but your father very much believes in the shield. He believes that we should hide here and we should build up our defenses and wait for the enemy to crash against our walls. I believe that that is a strategy. It may keep our people alive, but not indefinitely. And the enemy is allowed to continue building up and gaining power, then there are no walls in Middle-earth that can hold them.
It is here also, we agree. I see one day our people becoming both sword and shield. We need to act. Can I count on... And he stops and he thinks to himself and he says, "Arahad, let me speak plainly. You're a man of influence, you're a man that many respect. That's because of your actions. When you say you will do something, you do it. And that is the one stalwart memory that I have of you when I hear your name. And so I ask of you now, will you pledge support to me and speak with your allies and your comrades to do the same? I do not expect miracles, but I have a plan. But for the plan to succeed, the moot has to begin.
He like rubs his face, scratches his beard. Ugh, far out. You're a good kid, Farah. I think that you have a lot of potential, and I think, well, I see something in you, something I didn't see in your father, but you are young, very young, to be leader of our people. And there are many old, craggy men who will see you as a little boy trying to play a king.
I may be younger, but age does not dictate experience. And as he says that, he moves his head this way to show off the scar a bit more. But from his tone, Farroth is getting that this is a man who speaks plainly and is likely not going to be convinced otherwise. Would I be right in making that assumption, I wonder?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that the impression you get is he's not a bullshitter and that he like is a realist, you know?
Mm.
He would say, I was going to run myself. I have support, as you say, of allies, many of them. It's not like I haven't wanted this, like I haven't worked for this. But I didn't think that I would defeat your father. He has too many allies. He has too much support. There are others like me. And there are others not like me. There's a couple who are, by the grace of their lineage, well, they're given special support. I don't have that luxury. You do, Farath. You have a great lineage.
It is true. But that lineage will count for naught if it all becomes dust around us. Well, if indeed you are intending to put yourself forward, I can see there will be no convincing you.
Farath, what is
But
your
you're
man's
right.
name here? He interrupts.
This is Cynric of Rohan. He is a brave warrior and has fought by my side for many a time now, uncountable amounts of times.
Cynric, they tell me the horse lords are, like my people, forthright. They don't mince words.
They do not.
My estimation of Farath is that he is capable and that he's wise beyond his years. My estimation is that he would probably do an uncommonly good job of leading our people. Would you agree?
Sorry, 1 second.
Yep. He kind of says that to Farath, and he like looks, says that to Cynric and looks at you, Farath, waiting for an answer.
Okay, I'm back. The man before you has led elves into battle. He has parlayed on the highest tables with kings of elves, with the grandest of wizards. We have fought shadow like none have ever seen. And he has led our party and others, including those of your own men. Erlendor owes his life to him, as do others, as do men across this entire nation and beyond. Like you said, he bears the scars of this, but he also bears the stature of it. Age is not experience, and you can see that in his eyes and on the weight he bears upon his shoulders. I have not met many of your people, but if all are even half of what he has been, your nation would be in a much better state than it is now. You seem a good man. You seem to share some of the same values as Rohirrim back in my home. We're good at finding the measure of a man, and I think you would agree. He is much more of a man than his father. He would lead Arnor out of the shadow that it has languished in for many of our lifetimes. It would not be quick, it would not be painless. It would cost you and others many of their loved ones, so that the next generation can see the light. There will be no more children who have to live under the shadow of these barrows. They will not have to feel the chill. And when he says that, he looks at Faroth.
He leans back in his chair and he takes the wooden cup next to him, and he lifts it, as do many of the men around, and they all kind of just nod and take a drink. Those are beautiful words, Horsemaster. I agree with the sentiment.
I owe many of those words to... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I owe many of these words to the courts of the elves. They are a poetic people, and I've found that poetry speaks to hearts of elves and men. I do not know how the Dunedain operate, how they are structured, but Faroth is needed in a great many places. Could you perhaps steward his lands in his absence? If he unites these people, he will need others to help him lead them. And then maybe these craggy old men you speak of opposition will see your experience as well as his charisma.
It's possible. It wouldn't be too unusual for a king to go on a tour of Middle-earth after the coronation, I suppose. And you can see he's racking his brain thinking of a way to make it work.
Faroth, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Faroth is listening to this discussion, and he says, Arhad, after some consideration, I believe you're right. Perhaps I am too young. Perhaps I do lack the experience that is going to be required for this moot. I do, however, keep an open mind at the moot tomorrow.
I will, Faroth. I couldn't accept stewardship. It would be I know there would be no insult in it, but it would be an insult for me to take that position.
Titles can only be given when a ruler is in place. if my ascension were to transpire, and I do not forget those that help me. And he looks to Arahad, and he looks to Cynric as well. I pray you remember me tomorrow when I say my piece. I can ask for Arahad.
I'll be watching. Yeah. Would you like a drink?
Looks to Cynric. Cynric can decide whether we stay for a drink.
It's been a while. I would eagerly take whatever you have to offer, Arrowhead.
As will I.
It's not much, just some wine, but it's good. And some cups are like grabbed and wine poured and they're handed to you. One of the men sitting next to Arrowhead is like dealing cards, and he deals each of you some cards as well. And it's like clear that you're staying to play a game and have a drink. In the meantime, Syrian, you've made your way to the mess hall with these books, this like pile of books, various histories of Anumanas and of the Dunedain. And as you're kind of reading through, you're probably doing like a pantomime of reading very intensely, but actually you're listening very intensely for people sitting around you trying to hear what they're saying. A lot of it is just like inane chit chat. People who haven't seen each other in many years, kind of like clasping shoulders and, oh, it's great to see you, and how is blah blah blah, how's your wife, and all that sort of stuff, that kind of chatting. But you do hear a couple of interesting things. At one stage there's some men who sit at the table behind you, and they begin talking, and they're kind of going through that nonsense as well, the blah 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 blah, and oh, and how are things in Cardalan, and blah 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 blah. But then one of them says to the other, you know, Deerheil, someone's going to vote for him tomorrow. Someone's going to vote for him, and he's a boy. He's not great. He's not wise, but he's got a big name. And the other man kind of like chuckles. That's the way it goes, eh? Always the Cardalans, always the Rudars. Always the Arthedains. Yeah, and they continue talking about this Deerheil fellow. You get the impression after a couple of minutes that he is 16 years old, but he is the heir to Cardalan, which is one of the 3 old kingdoms of Rohan. So I think your impression would be like, this guy is very impressionable. He's like a boy. He doesn't really know what's going on. But because he has this big name and his father has died, he somehow is in charge of that household. Yeah.
Okay, I probably wouldn't sort of interject unless they started talking ill of somebody or a certain situation. But I definitely keep that in mind and perhaps see if other people are talking about that boy specifically as well.
So you sit there for a couple of more hours, and no one mentions Deerheil again. You do mention his name or you hear his name mentioned a few times, but there's not the same kind of conversation. People are talking about him as a candidate. But at some stage later, you hear people mention Damrod of Rudar, which is one of the other big principalities. One of the women rangers sitting there, she says, I could be wrong, but I think that Damrod was related to Aragorn, and he thinks that he's entitled to be king. I don't know. And she kind of sits back and puts her hands kind of wide. I don't know. That's just what I've heard. And somebody was like, oh, that's bullshit. I don't know. Aragorn had no kids and blah, 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 blah. But it's just like, that's another person who would be in the running.
Okay. What I would do, I'd do some more listening around. And then when it got to a certain time of the day, when when people have maybe had a few to drink, or they've sort of had a nice meal, I would probably start mingling and trying to canvass some votes, in terms of saying things like, oh, I hear that Faroth has returned and he has done this, he has killed, well, essentially a ring wraith. All these things. Trying just to be somebody who's neutral, or maybe sort of pretend to be speaking to somebody just so somebody else can overhear, that kind of thing.
So kind of building hype for Faroth.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just he's so important that he's got a traveling scholar from Gondor who follows him and records his deeds, going around from person to person and telling them that Faroth has returned. And I think after like an hour of that, you would notice that as you're kind of moving around the room, you would hear other people talking about Faroth before you've gotten to them. So the word has spread like wildfire. And then I guess you hear the other person that is up for election apart from Fardred, which would be Faroth's father, would be Arahad, which is the man that they just spoke to. They would say that he's very capable, he's forthright, he doesn't mince his words, he's a man of action, and they like that about him. Although there are concerns, maybe it's not very safe to go after the enemy, maybe we should, protect our borders. And there's concerns about Faroth's father. Those concerns are that he is too isolationist, he's too xenophobic, he doesn't want to deal with the hobbits, he doesn't want to deal with Elrond, he doesn't want to deal with the dwarves, he wants to keep Arnor just for the men.
I would definitely use that against him, again, sort of rallying the negativity of that and focus on that, and say things like, well, I hear that Faroth went and not only spoke with the elves but stayed with them for over a month in order to build diplomacy, and has been traveling west, and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Great. So you spend the night building hype and acquiring information.
Yes.
In the meantime, Beregond, you have moved through the castle and you've gone searching for Erlendor, and you would find him in his quarters within the castle. And he would be wearing kind of simple clothes, and he would be eating just like simple travel food, even though he's home now. Nothing rich or fancy. He's got like a loaf of bread, some cheese, and some wine. And as kind of you're brought into the room, he would look up, Beregond, good to see you, friend. Kai, is he there?
Yes. Beregond steps forward and says, I hope you're enjoying your meal. The food here, I believe, is better than in the orc mines.
Much. Would you like some? He cracks off some of this fresh bread.
Beregond stuffs some in his mouth and has a chew, and then says, "You owe your life. You owe a debt of blood to Faroth, son of Fardred. I'd like you to forget that. Let me tell you of my hatred for him. He came down from the northern kingdoms, and he made a mockery. He looked down his nose at the stewards and the kings."
That's amazing, Elvish.
Pay attention to the information displayed on the screens. Morning calls are not announced over the PA system.
Off. Damn. Okay. Where was I? He came down from the north and looked down his nose at all the historic kings of Gondor. He saw nothing good in our kingdom, and he, with his diplomacy, he offended our steward, and I loathed him with every inch of my body. As we travelled north, I travelled with him from Minas Tirith up to Carndum, and still, he made claims and made heroic claims of his lineage, but I thought he resembled more Ar-Pharazôn, who led the forces of Númenór into the west and to their doom, rather than any of the great kings of old. Tell me, did you hate him as much as I did?
He's like looking at you wide-eyed. I think he was like chewing some bread, and his mouth is like open, and some of the bread is like hanging out of the side of his mouth. I did.
Well, hard times make strange bedfellows, and we have seen the enemy. You were with us in Carndum when it attacked, and that is but one is but one face of what we have seen. We have the enemy has returned. We have seen the eye, and that is what we are facing. And we need a king to lead us. We need direction, and we need strong direction. And Faroth has taken a wound. The scar is all down his face. Back. It is not on his side. He faces his dangers. He leapt off a mountain to save me. You were there when he did it. This is the kind of man we need to lead us in these desperate times. We need a desperate man. And there's less chance. They say you can judge a man by what his enemies say of him. So I ask you to propose him, his known rival, maybe his known enemy, to propose him as leader of your people. I do not ask for your answer here. I just ask you to think it over, and think over what I have said, and give us your, hopefully, I hope for your support tomorrow. I have pledged my life and my support to him, and I hope you will too. And I turn and leave.
So again, he like watches you walk out of the room, and he's just got like bread hanging out inside of his mouth, just like dumbstruck, as the door closes. So it's late that night, and you've returned to your quarters. Is there anything that you would like to talk about before the move in the morning?
I think at some point on the way back, after the wine and the cards and stuff, Cynric would say, if I was Beregond, I would apologize for speaking out of turn, but I'm not. Those men must hear the words like those I have spoken about you. Of all your grand lineage that they know, and of all your grand acts that we know, I believe you can lead this nation to a better place. But I know also that I don't know, you cannot stay. Though king of this kingdom is a grand title and comes with all the responsibility of Arnor, your responsibility is greater. It is to many more nations, many more men and elves. I think you could lead, but I think you need to find someone to stay.
Cynric, I thank you for your confidence, and I thank you for everything that you've done and that I've known you. I appreciate that you think I may be a leader, but we must acknowledge the fact that tomorrow I will not win this moot. That is all but a certainty. However, I do not intend to. My brothers, they are traditionalists, and that is what I intend to use against them tomorrow.
He bucks an eyebrow.
Beregond smiles at that.
Would you consider who shall stand in this place?
Faroth, and you can tell he's not trying to hide it, but you can tell he's got something, but there's also a reason for him not speaking his mind fully. And he just looks to you and says, "Do you trust me?"
Well, I would hope all of the times we've fought side by side is indication of that. Of course.
Then, whatever is said tomorrow, know that I am not speaking for any of you. But I speak for myself and hopefully for my people. Tomorrow we'll see if what I believe to be true is in fact that way.
I think I prefer fighting. It's much simpler than all of this politics.
I completely agree.
I would also most definitely fill Faroth in and what I have learned from the evening. Especially about his father. Just simply in terms of playing to strengths and weaknesses and so on.
Yeah, and a lot of it from an outside opinion who's removed from the situation, who's looking at this objectively, it helps Faroth because at the end of the day, this man is still his father. And the idea of going against him is because he knows that to succeed and to lead the forces of the Dunedain into a successful future, it will mean defying him. So Syrian breaking everything down into tactics and into things to focus on is helpful because it is bereft of emotion. It is just logic, and he is grateful for that.
And Beregond reports that he spoke with Erlander, but he's not sure whether he'll nominate you or not.
I consider as much. Erlander is a proud man. Hopefully, our instincts will be true, and he will judge the situation from what he has seen and what he's heard. Thank you, everyone, for your help in this matter. It is appreciated.
So the night passes, and you probably sleep uneasily, I think, and nerves, turning your stomach all night long, until you start to hear the tweeting of birds in the morning, and the sun begins to crack through the curtains. You go and eat in the mess hall for breakfast, having put on your nicest clothes, having combed your hair, washed your beards, washed the road off you, and it is after breakfast that everyone is summoned to the very top of this enormous castle.
I'm just curious. Does Faroth like dress in the dress of his people, or is he wearing his like full-on elven gear and regalia that's incredibly grand?
Yes, let's not miss an opportunity to talk about what we'll wear.
Let's talk about the wardrobe, guys. Come on, it's tradition. I think to answer your question, Faroth, I don't think ever got an elven cloak. So he still has his Dunedain cloak, but he has certain bits about his person, like that are obviously clearly elven. It shows that he is a man who has travelled and experienced many things.
Okay. I just was, if it was like a tour de force of us all walking in our incredibly grand things from Rivendell and the halls of Thranduil and all that.
Oh yeah, we're going to put on a show. Don't worry about
that. So bedecked in finery, everyone makes their way to the very, very top of this castle, Menelband, the highest level of this ancient city. And it's an exhausting walk, particularly for Nar with his broken leg. Countless stairs to climb, but eventually you come to the top and it is worth it. A sort of circular platform atop one of these towers gives you a view of the entirety of the land around. You can see the whole lake laid out beyond, and you can see from here the ruins of Fornost. You can see Amon Sul, all of the great now ruined castles and grandeur of Arnor. There have been benches and things set up, sort of like a tiered amphitheater, sort of is created for this moot. And at the center of it all, there is a platform, a small plinth where someone could stand and speak. And you can see that it's packed already, and as you kind of enter, there are still many trailing behind you. Looks like almost all of the Dunedain that exist are here. There are hundreds of them packed into this Manel band, this top of the castle. And there's kind of an excited hubbub going on, people talking, people shaking hands and clasping shoulders, and as people enter, and no one's really sure what to expect. Once people have taken their seats, it takes, well, once you've taken your seats, it's another maybe half an hour till everyone is finally seated and ready to go. And an ancient man, must be 100 if he's a day, kind of like walks slowly out into the middle and stands by the plinth. And he like shakily takes some paper from his pocket and puts it onto the plinth, and he's like leaning heavily. 243 years since there has been a king's moot. But Aragorn, son of Arathorn, has died. And we must select a new leader. We will keep this civil, as always. There will be no insults. He like looks around with his like one good eye, like giving some of the people in the audience a stink eye. He knows who he's talking to. It will be a civil discussion. I will now go sit, and I will wait for the first to be put forward. And he like limps off with a plinth. And there is silence, uncomfortable silence. No one wants to be the first. And people are looking all around. Eventually, after what has to be a minute, which feels like about 1,000 years, a man stands up. I put forward Deerheil of Cardolan. He is descended of Cardolan, one of the great kingdoms of Arnor. Yes, he is young, but I believe that a change is necessary. We have had too many old men running our people, keeping them behind high walls. And he stands waiting for someone to second him. It looks like it's not going to happen until eventually, again, very awkward. There's just kind of this like flapping of like banners in the wind up here. But a tall man, bald with a black beard, stands up. I second. And then they both sit. And Deerheil, you can see, beardless, young, maybe 16 years old, looks horrified, very afraid. He tries to hide it, but he does a miserable job at it. And the men are kind of looking to him to stand up, and he does so nervously, and he like approaches the plinth. And his voice breaks as he tries to say something initially. I am Deerheil, and I am descendant of Cardolan. And he looks like he's trying to remember what he's been told to say. For too long, old men have made decisions for the young, and for too long we have stood behind high walls. The enemy is everywhere, and we should go and fight them. Thank you. And many of the people around kind of do like a polite, like golf clap. And this is the time where he waits for others to kind of like debate with him, if that's going to happen.
Faroth is sat there in the position, and I like to think because Faroth is obviously a newcomer to this, to the idea of him being in the King's Moot, I like to imagine that we're all kind of sat quite near the back, because Faroth isn't like a main contender, and he simply leans back in his chair and smiles down at Deerhill of Cardalan and just inclines his head, but doesn't actually go to dispute what he has said about that particular matter. He is waiting for everyone else to declare before he does.
So a couple of seconds go by before there's a groan of leather, and your father stands up from across the way from where you are. Deerhill of Cardalan has a good name. That is all that he has. He is a boy. He's inexperienced. He's probably never killed, never led men into battle. He's probably never left Arnor. To put the kingdom in the hands of this boy is reckless and dangerous. That is all I have to say. And he sits down, and there's like a people like boom, 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 boom. And Deerhill looks humiliated.
At that, I stand up and say, I never killed when I was 16 either. That is a privilege to those who are more fascinated with books than swords. But let me tell you that I grew to become somebody who has seen a lot more than I ever thought. Maybe this boy is the same. If he becomes leader now, he will experience far more in his youth and will learn at such a higher learning curve than, say, someone who has learned how to fight through mere sword fighting with straw men before heading out into the real world.
There's a couple of like, people kind of agreeing. And there's a couple of like people stomping, but it's not as dramatic as when your father had spoken Faroth. And Deerhill just like cannot hide the smile that someone is actually on his side. And it goes on like that. People standing up, kind of giving out about him, and some defending him. You get the impression from the people who are speaking that those who are defending him really want to mold him for their own purposes. It seems that everyone is pretty sure he's not going to be a good king on his own, but he is young, he's inexperienced, and maybe if you're well positioned, you could like turn him to suit you. Yeah, that goes on for a couple of minutes until eventually no one else speaks. Deerhill like inclines his head and goes to sit back down. There is a bit of a pause before Arvaleg, who is a captain. He's like pretty well situated, well known. He stands and he says, "Enough of this. We all know who is to be king. This man has served longer than any other. He has led us to countless victories. He has traveled far and wide. He has a better head for rulership than anyone else that I know. I've never seen him quake at any shadow. I've never seen him flinch in his duty. We all know who this is. Fardred. I put him forward." And there's like a ooh. Who will second?
It is at this point that Faroth stands up abruptly and he lets quiet fall across the area. He is waiting for all eyes to be on him. And he says, I'm a man of the Dunedain. And I'm the son of this man here, Fardred. He's a wise man. He is a tactician and a warrior. The ways of fighting the shadow run deeply through his blood. And I respect tradition, and as his son, I second him. However, I would also like to put myself forward in this king's moot.
People are going batshit.
Faroth waits patiently. Do not mistake me, my brothers. As I say, I'm a traditionalist. I know that this may cause uproar and worry to some of you. I am young, and some of you may feel that I lack the experience of other men here. Now, let me tell you that this is not the case. I and my friends have fought against the shadow. We have seen what is coming. But as I say, I respect tradition. And I would like to call upon every man here to do the same, to respect the tradition. It is said that every man of the lines of our people have the right to their say in this king's moot. So that at least unites us. However, we are not united. We are not all together. Faroth shoots a look at Erlinder. Many of our people are absent this day. That is because they reside deep in the bowels of Gundobad. I'm sure many of you know of this place, and he scans the audience to get a reaction.
Yeah, they're kind of like hushed whispers.
I like to put myself forward for this king's moot. But I also state that our very traditions are at stake. If we decide a ruler whilst they are absent, so I propose this. I will take 50 men, and I will free all of our people that reside in that vile dungeon. And then, and only then, can a true king of our people be decided. And he waits.
There's more whispers. Some people are shouting, "Oh, this is ridiculous! It cannot be happening!" And through it all, the old man is like making his way slowly to the plinth. And it takes them, 30, 40 seconds while people are shouting and people are standing up from one side and pointing to the other side, like, "How dare you!" Parties fighting. So eventually he comes to the center and he's like knocking on the plinth. Eventually people quiet down. It is true. We're not all here. Possibly. It is legal to insist that all are here for a king's moot. I believe that it is right, and it is within tradition. And you can see like many of the men are just looking at it like, "Get on with it, old man." He's like taking his sweet time with it. That this man, Faroth, son of Fardred, be given the chance to rescue our people. And so I vote To postpone the king's mood until they are returned to us. Who will second?
Farrell looks to Erlendur.
Erlendur steps forward and he says, I hate Farah, son of Fardrin. I have hated him for my entire life. I hated him when we were little for his name and his great father. I hated him when we were adolescents for his constant success and his skill and the girls that would flock after him. I hated him when we were young men for his effortless charisma and his loyal friends. I hated Fardrin for all of my life. That is until he saved me. Many of you know that I have been to Gundabad, not by choice. I and many of my friends, my brothers, my sisters, were captured and brought there to toil in the mines, and many of them are dead. I escaped. And the stars shone on the meeting as I met Farath and this party that he has with him. And they saved me from the whip of the orc and the terror of the warg. And in that time I saw him do things I did not think possible. He and this group, they slew a horde of orcs. Farath leapt off a mountain into the abyss to rescue his friend. He parleyed effortlessly with an elf lord. He stood face to face with the Black Númenórian. This is a great man, and I believe that he can do this. And I second him, and I will go with him.
Farrell, his mouth is dry. All of the things that Erlendur was saying about how much he hated him, it is all true. And Farrell is surprised because he felt exactly the same. He always believed Erlendur to be the superior fighter, the better ranger, the better hunter. So he finds it curious now that they have been looking at each other through the same lens, but the wrong way around. And he quietly nods to Erlendur, almost imperceptible nod to him, as the crowd, I'm sure, erupts once again.
Yep. Ah, outrageous. Sorry about that.
Lots of talking.
Yeah, unexpected. The crowd is going nuts. Go ahead,
Baragon steps close to Faroth, where the others can hear him, but not the whole sort of council, and says, Mount Gundabad is a... You have seen the evil there, and it will be an incredibly hard target. You will need powerful allies if you are to take a place like that. Put you in a tomb with the wraiths when you were a child. Maybe it is time to face the wraiths of Fornost. Reveal your ancestry to them. If they will follow you to Mount Gundabad.
Aviso. Por favor, esté atento a la información mostrada en los monitores. Por la megafonía de...
The race is Spanish.
They are indeed, yeah, non-stop.
Right, so yes. Walk the paths of the dead through Fornast and raise an army and use the blood debt to the line of what was your line?
Anarion.
Anarion, yeah, and use your blood debt to the line of Anarion to call on the dead to fight for you.
Faroth whirls around, surprise in his eyes, and he tries to hide it to the crowd, but he's looking at Beragond with utter shock. Faroth's idea was to take men and liberate the slaves, not take Gundabad. But now he's saying this, and he doesn't know how the crowd are going to take that. So, but he remains quiet.
The crowd is all over the place. They're just screaming back and forth, and the old man is like knocking on the table, and nothing's happening. Like your father up on his feet, his like face is red from screaming. There's like spittle flying from his mouth. He's pointing at somebody across the way. It's outrageous anger everywhere that you look. And then Arahad stands and moves to the center where the old man is, and he like politely like moves him aside, and then he like takes his sword and pulls it from the scabbard and begins like smashing the hilt onto the plinth until eventually people fall quiet. Old man is too old to shout. The first thing he said was, "We will not hurl insults. We will act like civilized people." And that is not happening here. Puts his sword back in its scabbard. Faroth is right. Many of our people are not here. They are in Gundabad. They are held under lock and key. They are whipped and tortured by orcs, creatures of the enemy. The mysteries of Fornos are not known to me, and I do not know what the line of Anarion could do there, if there is something that can be done. But if not, I'll be happy to join you, Faroth, son of Fardred, as we liberate our people from Gundabad. And I will take 10 of my men with me. Now, I do not want this to descend into further screaming and shouting. And he like gives a stern look to everyone involved. And many of the older men are kind of like nodding, like they lost themselves in the chaos. He steps away from the podium.
And Faroth gives a nod to him, thanking for the support wordlessly.
So the mood kind of continues, and your father would step forward and he would say, "This is unacceptable. We are here to have a king's mood. I understand that many of our people are not here, but to send 50 men to go and free them from Gundabad is suicide. We would lose 50 men more. And we would tell the enemy, well, we would show them defiance. We would show them that we are to be feared and that will bring them here for that."
We can no longer hide, Father. We must take the fight to the shadow before it envelops all of us. And he looks to the rest of the crowd. I know what I say may seem like folly, but I have fought against the shadow long. And my friends here can attest to the fact that sometimes all it takes is for someone to do the right thing. Liberating our people is the right thing to do, and there will be no king of the Dunedain until every man with the right has their say.
So there's a cheer from the crowd. Many of the men who had kind of been on the shouting at you side have become the shouting for you side. And there's just sort of a rabble going on, people shouting left, right, and center. But it's support, it's cheering, it's not like insults anymore. And after all of it, the old man steps to the center again. And he says, "It is decided. Faroth will take 50 rangers to Gundabad. And there, he will do what he can to rescue our people. When he returns, successful or unsuccessful, We will have our king's moot. And he like knocked with finality on the plinth. And like the second that he is out of earshot and has moved away, people begin like talking to each other again, and like after the sort of solemn silence that followed his speech and his declaration, and lots of people come over, rushing over towards you to like clap you on the shoulder or like grab you in an embrace. Very happy with what you decided to do, but among them all, your father is like making a beeline towards you. He's like flanked by some of his men, and he just like begins pushing people out of the way, and comes up to you. What the hell do you think you're doing? What is the meaning of this?
Like I said, Father, I'm respecting our traditions. I'm doing the right thing.
You're my son. You're supposed to support me.
I support our people, Father, as you do too. We will still have this King's Moot, but only when every man with the right has their say.
You will be the death of us all. You're no son of mine. And he turns on his heel.
And Varroth just watches him go,
Oof.
just like wordlessly.
Baragon looks at Faroth just to see how the words have had an effect on him.
He's not great at hiding that kind of thing, so clearly there is, like, that clearly shook him, but he hasn't reacted. He just stays still, and that's what gives it away.
And I imagine, like, you're standing there staring straight ahead as he leaves, and, like, Arnor comes over and he like grabs you in like a headlock and like gives you a nuggie, and there's like celebrations all around. People like shouting and like happy with the decision, although maybe Faroth doesn't look so happy.
And one last thing, he looks as Xanadar's grabbed him and then starts speaking with one of his friends. Faroth looks to his companions and he says, I do not speak for you. I do not expect you to come.
Are you renouncing my pledge, my captain?
I would not dare, Berigond, but pledge
Then
or
you
not.
speak for me. Then you speak for me, sir.
And Faroth doesn't argue.
Cynric kind of like gives him a fairly solid punch to the shoulder and goes, I haven't carried you this far to see you go off and get yourself killed. I've got plenty more places to drag you yet.
And Faroth claps Cynric on the shoulder and gives him a nod and just laughs at the joke.
And Syrian hasn't dismissed his patient yet.
No. I put my hand on Farah's shoulder just for sort of a moment of condolences, but I'm definitely thinking to myself, well, he was not worth standing up for, this father of his.
He may yet still change his mind, but for now, we have a plan. And he looks at them, he says, it might not be a very good plan, but I believe we can accomplish this. We have achieved impossible things before, and we can do again. And we will have 50 of our best.
Via Fornost or not? I ask him.
And Faroth looks to Baragon and says, we shall see if the line of Anarion still holds weight in those that have vacated this world. Yes.
So with the promise of going to Fornost to wake the dead and bring them to destroy Gundabad, we leave our companions in celebration as the Dunedain drink late into the night. If you did, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to my wonderful cast, Caius, Dan, Rob, and Jay. We'll catch you next time.